Chapter 1. The rain had been falling since before dawn, soft and steady, the kind that made the whole world feel wrapped in a grey wool blanket. I'd always loved mornings like this. The café felt warmer on rainy days, the lights softer, the air richer with the smell of espresso and vanilla syrup. People came in quieter, gentler, as if the weather had pressed a finger to their lips. I was wiping down the counter when the bell over the door chimed, a sound I'd come to recognize almost as easily as my own heartbeat. He was here again, the man with the storm-gray eyes. He stepped inside without a sound, though the rain was coming down hard enough to drum against the windows. His dark hair was damp, curling slightly at the ends, and his coat looked soaked through, yet he didn't drip. Not a single drop hit the floor. The wooden boards stayed perfectly dry beneath his boots, just like always. He didn't speak as he approached the counter. He never did, not at first. He simply looked at me with that quiet, unreadable expression, as if he were studying me, or memorizing me, or maybe trying to remember something he'd forgotten long ago. "Good morning," I said, keeping my voice light, rainy one today. His gaze flicked toward the window, then back to me. "It is." His voice was low, warm, almost hesitant, like he wasn't used to using it. "The usual?" I asked. He nodded once. I turned to make his drink, a lavender honey latte, extra hot, and tried not to let my curiosity show. He only ever came in when it rained. Not drizzle, not mist. Rain, real rain, and he always ordered the same thing, always sat at the same corner table, always stayed until the storm began to ease. And he never left footprints. I'd checked, more than once. When I handed him his drink, our fingers brushed. Just barely, but enough for a tiny spark of warmth to jump between us, like static from a wool sweater. He didn't react, but something in his eyes shifted, a flicker, a softening, a shadow of something I couldn't name. He took the cup and moved to his usual seat by the window. Outside, the rain streaked down the glass in silver ribbons, blurring the world into watercolor. He watched it with an intensity that made my chest tighten. I tried to focus on my work, but my attention kept drifting back to him, to the way he held the cup like it was something precious, to the way the light caught in his eyes, turning them the color of distant thunder, to the way he seemed, lonely, not in a dramatic, tragic way, more like someone who'd spent a long time on the outside of something warm, watching it from afar. When the café emptied out for a moment, I wandered over with a cloth, pretending to wipe down the nearby tables. "You always come in on rainy days," I said casually. He didn't look at me right away. His gaze stayed on the window, on the rain sliding down the glass. "Yes. Is it your favorite kind of weather?" A pause, then softly, "It's the only time I can be here." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He finally turned toward me, and for a heartbeat I felt pinned in place by the depth of his eyes. There was something ancient in them, something tired, something searching, but then he looked away again, as if he'd said too much. "I should go," he murmured, standing abruptly, but I glanced at the window. The rain was still pouring. "You just got here." He hesitated, his hand resting on the back of the chair. "I didn't mean to stay this long." Before I could ask what that meant, he walked toward the door. And as he stepped outside, the rain surged a sudden, heavy burst that rattled the windows and made the lights flicker. I hurried to the glass, watching him move down the sidewalk. He didn't splash in the puddles. He didn't disturb the water at all. And when I looked down at the floor where he'd stood, the boards were bone dry. A shiver ran through me, not of fear, but of recognition, the sense that something impossible had brushed against my life, leaving the faintest ripple behind. I didn't know who he was, but I knew one thing for certain. He wasn't just a handsome regular, and he definitely wasn't human. Chapter 2. The rain finally eased by late afternoon, thinning into a mist that clung to the windows like breath on glass. The café grew quieter as people drifted back to their errands, leaving behind half-empty mugs and the lingering scent of cinnamon. But my mind wasn't on the dishes or the tables. It was on him, Typhos, though I didn't know his name yet. The man who only came when it rained. The man who didn't drip, didn't splash, didn't leave a single trace behind. I waited until the last customer left before I slipped out from behind the counter and walked to the spot where he'd been sitting. The wooden floorboards were smooth and warm under my shoes. No dampness, no footprints, not even the faint outline of a boot tread. I crouched down, running my fingers over the boards, dry, completely dry. "Claire," my coworker Jenna called from behind the counter, "you're doing that thing again." I straightened quickly. "What thing?" "The thing where you stare at the floor like it's going to confess something." She smirked, tying her apron tighter. "Let me guess, Rain Guy was here." I tried to sound casual. "He has a name, you know." "Oh, and what is it?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. "I don't know." Jenna laughed. "Claire, you've been crushing on this man for months, and you don't even know his name." "I'm not crushing," I said, which was exactly what someone crushing would say. She leaned her elbows on the counter. "He only comes in when it rains. He sits in the same spot. He stares at you like you're the last warm light in the universe. And you're telling me you're not at least a little curious." I hesitated. "I'm more than curious." Her expression softened. "Then talk to him next time." I didn't know how to explain that talking wasn't the problem. It was everything else, the way he moved like he wasn't entirely solid, the way the rain seemed to follow him, the way the air felt charged when he was near, the way he'd said, "It's the only time I can be here." I grabbed a rag and started wiping down the tables, trying to shake the feeling that something impossible was brushing against the edges of my life. When I reached his table, I paused again. The chair was still slightly pulled out, angled toward the window. His cup sat empty, the lavender honey scent still clinging to the rim. I lifted it, and a faint warmth lingered on the ceramic, as if he'd only just left. I glanced toward the door. Outside, the mist had thinned even more, turning into a soft, silvery haze. The street glistened with puddles reflecting the dimming sky. People walked by with umbrellas, their footsteps splashing lightly. But when I looked down the sidewalk, toward the direction he'd gone, there were no footprints, not washed away. Not faint, not distorted, just a nothing, a clean stretch of wet pavement, untouched. A shiver ran through me, settling low in my stomach. Not fear, something else, something like anticipation, like the feeling right before lightning strikes. I pressed my palm to the window, watching the mist swirl. Whoever he wasn't just a man who liked rainy days. And I had the sinking, thrilling suspicion that the next time he walked through that door, my life would never be the same. Chapter 3. The next time he came in, the rain wasn't gentle. It was a full-throated storm, the kind that rattled the windows and turned the sky the color of bruised steel. Wind pushed against the café door hard enough that the bell above it jingled in protest. Most people hurried past with their heads down, umbrellas bending backward in the gusts. But he walked in as if the storm parted for him. The moment he stepped inside, the lights flickered. Just once, just enough to make my breath catch. He looked different today, or maybe I was finally seeing him clearly. His hair was darker from the rain, curling in soft waves that brushed his jaw. His coat clung to him, soaked through, but again, no water dripped onto the floor. Not a single drop. He paused at the counter, eyes lifting to mine. Something in his expression made my heart stutter, a quiet intensity, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Hi," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "Hello, Claire." I froze. I had never told him my name. He said it like he'd known it forever, like it was a word he'd carried with him through 1,000 storms. How did you?" He looked down, almost shy. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it like that." "Like what?" "Like I've known you longer than I should." A chill ran through me, but not the frightening kind. More like the moment before thunder, charged, expectant. I cleared my throat. "Do you want your usual?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, please." His voice was warm, but there was something strained beneath it, like he was holding back a truth that pressed against his ribs. As I made his drink, I kept glancing at him. He stood perfectly still, hands resting lightly on the counter, eyes fixed on the storm outside. Every time lightning flashed, his expression tightened not in fear, but in recognition, like he understood the storm in a way no one else could. When I handed him the latte, our fingers brushed again. This time the spark was stronger, a warm pulse that traveled up my arm and settled in my chest. He inhaled sharply. "Sorry," I whispered, "don't be." His voice was barely audible. "I don't feel that often." I blinked. "Feel what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he moved to his usual table by the window, the storm casting shifting shadows across his face. I wiped down the counter just to give my hands something to do, but my attention kept drifting back to him. Finally, I gathered my courage and walked over. "Can I sit?" I asked. He looked up at me, surprise flickering across his features. Then he nodded. I slid into the chair across from him. The rain hammered against the window, blurring the world into streaks of silver. "You said something last time," I began, "about rain being the only time you can be here." His jaw tightened. "I shouldn't have said that, but you did." He exhaled slowly, his gaze dropping to the cup in his hands. "I don't want to lie to you." "Then don't." For a long moment he didn't speak. The storm outside roared, thunder rolling low and deep. When he finally lifted his eyes to mine, something in them had changed, a softness, a sadness, a kind of longing that made my breath catch. "I come when it rains," he said quietly, "because that's the only time I can take form." I stared at him. "Take form?" He nodded once. "And the footprints?" I whispered. He looked down. "I don't leave them." "Because you're, what, a ghost?" He gave a small, almost amused exhale. "No, not a ghost." "Then what are you?" His eyes met mine again, and for a heartbeat the world felt impossibly still. "I can't tell you," he said softly, "not yet." Before I could respond, a violent crack of thunder shook the windows. He flinched, not in fear, but like the sound tugged at him, pulling him somewhere he didn't want to go. "I should go," he said abruptly, standing so quickly the chair legs scraped the floor. "Wait." But he was already moving toward the door, his coat swirling behind him like a shadow caught in the wind. "Will I see you again?" I called out. He paused with his hand on the door. "When it rains," he said without turning. Then he stepped outside, and the storm swallowed him whole. I stood there long after he disappeared, my heart pounding, my mind racing. He wasn't human. I knew that now. But whatever he wasn't done with me, and I wasn't done with him. Chapter 4. The next few days passed in a strange, restless haze. The sky stayed stubbornly clear, the kind of bright winter blue that felt almost mocking. I kept glancing at the door every time the bell chimed, half hoping, half dreading that he might walk in anyway. He didn't, of course he didn't. He'd said he could only be here when it rained. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us, that the storm had left more behind than puddles and damp air. His voice lingered in my mind, low and warm, and threaded with something like longing. I don't feel that often. I didn't know what he meant, but I felt it too, that spark, that pull, that impossible connection. By the time the next storm rolled in, I was already watching the sky. It started as a thin gray line on the horizon, a smudge of shadow against the bright afternoon. Then the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain, sharp, metallic, electric. Customers hurried inside, shaking off umbrellas and stamping their feet. I moved to the window, wiping a circle in the fogged glass. The clouds thickened, darkened, gathered. And then, as if someone had flipped a switch, the rain began, not a drizzle, not a gentle patter, a sudden, heavy downpour. The bell over the door chimed. My breath caught. He stepped inside like he'd been carved from the storm itself, hair damp, coat clinging to him, eyes the color of thunderclouds. The café lights flickered again, just once, as if acknowledging him. But this time something was different. The rain outside intensified the moment he crossed the threshold. Sheets of water slammed against the windows, rattling the glass. The gutters overflowed instantly. The street blurred into a river of silver. I stared at him, heart pounding. "Did you bring that with you?" He froze. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked startled. Truly startled. His eyes widened and a faint crack of panic flashed across his face. "I shouldn't have come," he murmured. "Why not?" He shook his head, stepping back toward the door. "It's too strong today. I can't control it." Control what? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned fast, too fast, and reached for the door. Typhos. The name slipped out before I could stop it, even though I didn't know it yet. It just felt right, like it had been sitting on my tongue for days. He froze. Slowly, he looked back at me. His expression was unreadable, shock, fear, wonder, all tangled together. "That's not my name," he said softly. "But it's close." The storm outside roared, thunder cracking so loudly the lights flickered again. He flinched, not from the sound, but like something had tugged at him. "Pulled him, Claire," he said, voice tight. "I have to go." "Wait." But he was already moving, already slipping through the door and into the storm. The rain swallowed him instantly, blurring his shape until he vanished completely. I ran to the window, palms pressed to the glass. The storm didn't ease when he left. It worsened. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the street in stark white. The wind howled, bending the trees. The rain hammered the pavement so hard it bounced back up in misty sprays. And in the middle of it all, I felt something I couldn't explain, a tug low in my chest, like a thread connecting me to him, pulled taut and trembling. He wasn't just appearing when it rained. The rain was appearing when he did. And whatever he was running from, it wasn't the storm. It was himself. Chapter 5. The storm didn't let up for 2 days. It clung to the town like a living thing, pressing against the windows, humming in the walls, filling the air with a restless, electric tension. Customers came in soaked and shivering, grateful for warmth and coffee, but even they whispered about how strange the weather felt. "Feels like the sky's angry," one man muttered as he shook out his umbrella. "Feels like it's watching," another said. I tried to laugh it off, but the truth was I felt it too, a presence in the rain, a pull in my chest. A sense that someone was out there, and he was. I felt him before I saw him. It was late, close to closing, the café nearly empty. The storm outside had grown heavier, the kind of rain that blurred the world into streaks of silver. I was wiping down the counter when a sudden, sharp pressure bloomed behind my ribs, a tug, like a thread pulled taut. I turned toward the door just as it opened. Typhos stepped inside, soaked to the bone, breathing hard as if he'd run the whole way. His hair clung to his forehead, his coat dripping, except the water never touched the floor. It vanished before it fell. He looked different, not just tired, not just storm-worn, haunted. "Claire," he said, voice raw. I froze. "What happened?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, chest rising and falling too fast, eyes flicking to the windows as if expecting something to break through them. I moved toward him slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. Typhos talked to me. He flinched at his name, the one I'd guessed, the one he'd said was close. His eyes softened, just for a moment, before the storm inside him surged again. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered. "It's too dangerous." "For who?" "For you." A chill ran through me. "Why?" He closed his eyes, jaw tightening. "Because I'm not supposed to be in this world. Not like this. Not for this long." I swallowed. "Then why are you?" His eyes opened, and the look in them nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. "You." The word was barely audible, but it hit with the force of thunder. My heart stuttered. "Typhos." He shook his head, stepping back. I tried to stay away. I tried to keep the storms from following me, but they're getting stronger. I'm losing control. Control of what? He hesitated, then lifted his hand. A single droplet of water hovered above his palm, suspended, shimmering, alive. I stared, breath caught in my throat. He closed his fingers, and the droplet dissolved into mist. I'm a rain-bound spirit, he said softly. A guardian of storms. I exist when the rain does. I fade when it stops. I'm not meant to take form for long, and I'm not meant to be seen. My pulse thundered in my ears. But I see you, yes. His voice cracked, and that's the problem. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the café in stark white. Typhos flinched again, his hand gripping the back of a chair as if the storm itself were pulling at him. "What's happening to you?" I whispered. "The storm realm is calling me back." His voice was strained, pained. "I stayed too long. I came too close, and now the balance is breaking. I stepped closer, then let me help you. You can't." His eyes were full of something like despair. "You're human, you're warmth and light and life. I'm rain. I'm everything that slips through fingers. Not mine," I said, reaching out. He stared at my hand like it was something sacred. Slowly, hesitantly, he lifted his own. When our fingers touched, the world shifted. Warmth surged through him, through me a pulse of energy that softened the storm outside. The rain eased, the thunder quieted, the wind stilled. Typhos inhaled sharply, eyes widening in wonder. "You," his voice trembled, "you steady me." I squeezed his hand. "Then stay." He looked at me like I'd asked him to defy the sky itself. "I don't know if I can," he whispered. But he didn't let go, and neither did I. Chapter 6. The storm eased sometime after midnight, softening from a violent roar into a steady, rhythmic patter against the café windows. The lights had stopped flickering, the wind had calmed, but inside, the air still felt charged, like the storm hadn't really left, just settled into the space between us. Typhos stood in the center of the café, breathing hard, rain-dark hair clinging to his forehead. His coat dripped in shimmering trails that vanished before they touched the floor. His eyes, those impossible, storm-gray eyes, were fixed on our joined hands. He looked stunned, like he couldn't believe I was real. Like he couldn't believe he was. "I shouldn't be able to feel this," he whispered. His voice was raw, almost reverent. A shiver ran through him, and I felt it through our connection, a tremor of something ancient and lonely and aching. "What do you mean?" I asked softly. He swallowed, his fingers tightening around mine. "I'm not meant to be solid, not fully, not for long. Rain gives me shape, but it's fragile, temporary." His gaze lifted to mine, searching. "Humans can't touch me, not like this. But I can, yes." His voice cracked. "You can." Outside, the rain softened even more, turning into a gentle, steady fall. The storm that had raged for days seemed to quiet itself around us, as if listening. Typhos looked toward the window, his expression shifting confusion, wonder, fear, all tangled together. "The rain," he murmured. "It's responding to you, to me." I blinked. How? I don't know. He shook his head, eyes wide. "But when you touched me, it calmed. It's never done that before." I felt a warmth bloom in my chest, not heat, exactly, but a soft, glowing awareness. Like something inside me had been waiting for this moment, this connection, this impossible truth. "Typhos," I said gently, "look at me." He did. And the world seemed to narrow to the space between us, the warmth of his hand, the soft glow of the café lights, the rain whispering against the windows. "You're not slipping through my fingers," I said. "You're here." His breath hitched. "I don't know how long I can stay." "Then stay for now." For a moment he didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. He just stared at me like I was something he'd never expected to find, something he'd never dared to hope for. Then, slowly, he lifted his free hand. He hesitated, a fraction of a second, as if afraid he might dissolve the moment he tried. But he didn't. His fingertips brushed my cheek, warm, solid, real. A soft gasp escaped him. "Claire." The way he said my name like it was a prayer, a promise, a lifeline, made my heart ache. "I've never touched someone like this," he whispered, "never felt anything like this." I leaned into his hand, letting my eyes flutter shut for a moment. "Then feel it." He exhaled shakily, and I felt the tremor in his fingers. When I opened my eyes again, he was watching me with a tenderness that made my breath catch. But beneath it, beneath the wonder and the warmth, there was fear. "What's wrong?" I asked. He looked down, his hand slipping away from my cheek. "If the storm realm realizes I'm anchored here, if they sense I'm becoming too solid, they'll pull me back." "Pull you back where?" "To where I belong." His voice was barely audible. "To the place between storms, the place I was made from." A cold shiver ran through me. "And if they pull you back?" I might not return. His eyes met mine, full of quiet dread. "Not like this, not with form, not with memory." My chest tightened. "Typhos." He shook his head, stepping closer, his voice urgent. "I don't want to disappear. Not now. Not after." His gaze dropped to our hands. "Not after you." The rain outside softened to a whisper, as if echoing his fear. I squeezed his hand. "You're not disappearing. You don't know that. Then let me help you." He stared at me, truly stared, as if trying to understand how someone human could speak with such certainty. "You steady me," he said again, voice trembling. "I don't know why, I don't know how, but when you touch me I feel anchored, I feel real." "Then stay close," I whispered. "Stay with me." His breath caught. For a moment the storm inside him quieted completely. And in that fragile, impossible stillness, I felt it the beginning of something powerful, something dangerous, something beautiful. A connection that shouldn't exist, a bond that defied the rain, a choice neither of us fully understood yet, but one we were already making together. Chapter 7. The next morning the sky was deceptively calm, a pale, washed-out blue that made the night before feel like a dream. But I knew better. Storms didn't just vanish, not the kind tied to typhos, not the kind that felt alive. I kept glancing at the door all day, waiting for the bell to chime, waiting for the air to shift, waiting for that quiet, impossible presence to step inside. He didn't come, not during the morning rush, not during the slow afternoon, not when the clouds began to gather again, thick and heavy. By evening the air felt wrong, too still, too charged, too expectant. I stepped outside during my break, letting the cool air brush against my skin. The sky above the town had darkened into a deep, bruised gray, swirling in slow, unnatural spirals. The wind carried the metallic scent of lightning, sharp enough to sting my nose. A storm was coming. But not a normal one. I felt it, a tug low in my chest. The same thread that had pulled tight the night typhos revealed the truth. It thrummed now, vibrating with urgency, with fear. "Typhos." I whispered into the wind, "Where are you?" The clouds answered. A crack of thunder split the sky, so loud it rattled the café windows behind me. The wind surged, whipping my hair across my face. The first drops of rain fell heavy, cold, too fast. Then the downpour hit, not a curtain of water. A wall, the kind of rain that felt like it had weight, like it was trying to push the world down. I stumbled back under the awning, heart pounding. And then I saw him. He appeared at the far end of the street, half-formed at first, a silhouette flickering in and out of the rain, like the storm couldn't decide whether to reveal him or swallow him whole. His steps were uneven, his body flickering around the edges. "Typhos," I shouted, stepping forward. He lifted his head. Even from a distance I saw the pain in his eyes. He tried to move toward me, but the storm surged, pulling at him like invisible hands. His form wavered, dissolving into mist before snapping back into shape. "No," he gasped, voice barely audible over the roar. "Not yet, not now." I ran toward him, rain soaking through my clothes instantly. The wind shoved against me, but I pushed harder, my heart slamming against my ribs. When I reached him, he was on his knees, hands pressed to the pavement as if trying to anchor himself. His body flickered again, solid, then translucent, then solid. "Typhos," I said, dropping beside him. "Look at me." He lifted his head, rain streaming down his face like tears he couldn't shed. "They're pulling me back," he whispered. "The storm realm, they've felt the imbalance, they know I stayed too long. "No," I said fiercely. "You're not going anywhere." He gave a broken laugh. "Claire, I don't have a choice." Lightning cracked overhead, so bright it turned the world white. Typhos flinched, his body flickering violently, edges dissolving into swirling mist. I grabbed his hands, warm, solid, barely. "Stay with me," I said, voice shaking. "Stay." His fingers tightened around mine, desperate. "I'm trying. I swear I'm trying." The storm roared louder, wind spiraling around us in a vortex that lifted leaves and debris into the air. The rain hit harder, each drop like a tiny hammer. Typhos's form wavered again, this time longer, more unstable. "Claire," he said, voice breaking, "if I disappear now, I don't know if I'll come back." My throat tightened. "Then don't disappear." "I don't want to." His eyes locked onto mine, full of fear and longing, but I can feel it, the pull, it's stronger than me. I shook my head, tears mixing with the rain. "No, no, Typhos, listen to me. You're real, you're here, you're not going anywhere." He reached up, cupping my cheek with a hand that flickered like a dying flame. "You steady me," he whispered, "but the storm, it's stronger tonight." Another crack of thunder tore through the sky. Typhos's body dissolved into mist. "No." I screamed, grabbing at the air where he'd been, for a heartbeat, a single, fragile heartbeat, and I felt his fingers brush mine. Then he was gone. The storm swallowed him whole. I fell to my knees in the rain, chest heaving, heart splintering. He was gone, and I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that if I didn't find a way to reach him, to pull him back, I might never see him again. Chapter 8. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him dissolving in the storm, his hand slipping from mine, his voice breaking, the rain swallowing him whole. The memory replayed again and again, sharp as lightning, cold as the downpour that had taken him. By morning, the storm had vanished. The sky was painfully clear, washed clean, as if nothing strange had happened at all. But the emptiness in the air told a different story. The world felt hollow, like something had been pulled out of it, like someone had. I opened the café alone, moving through the motions on autopilot, grinding beans, steaming milk, wiping counters. But everything felt wrong, too quiet, too still, too normal. Typhos was gone, and I could feel it, a hollow ache behind my ribs, a tug that had snapped, leaving only frayed ends. Around noon, a soft drizzle began to fall. Not a storm, not even real rain. Just a thin, misty veil drifting down from a sky that didn't seem committed to it. But the moment the first drop touched the window, something inside me shifted, a pull, a whisper, a thread tightening again. I stepped outside, letting the mist settle on my skin. It wasn't cold, it wasn't warm, it felt aware. Like it recognized me. "Typhos," I whispered. The drizzle thickened, gathering into a soft, steady rain. Not enough to soak me, but enough to blur the edges of the world. The air shimmered faintly, like heat rising from pavement, except it wasn't heat. It was something else, something magical. I closed my eyes, and the world tilted, not physically, not like falling, but like slipping between layers of reality. The rain around me grew heavier, louder, until it drowned out everything else. The sound became a hum, then a pulse, then a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't standing outside the café anymore. I was standing in a world made of rain. Everything around me shimmered, a landscape of mist and water and shifting light. The ground beneath my feet rippled like a shallow pool, yet held my weight. The sky above was a swirling tapestry of storm clouds, threaded with silver lightning that never struck. It was beautiful, and terrifying, and impossibly familiar. "Claire." His voice was faint, distant, like an echo carried on wind. I spun around. Typhos stood several yards away, half-formed, his body flickering like a reflection in disturbed water. His eyes widened when he saw me, shock and fear and something like hope flashing across his face. "No," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here." I stepped toward him. "You pulled me here." He shook his head. I didn't. You followed the connection. What connection? You know. His voice trembled. You felt it. I swallowed hard. I felt you disappearing. He closed his eyes, pain flickering across his features. The storm realm is reclaiming me. I stayed too long. I broke too many rules. I came too close to you. Then let me pull you back. You can't. His voice cracked. This place, it's not meant for humans. It will unravel you. Then we'll unravel together. His eyes snapped open, wide with fear. Don't say that. Why not? Because I can't lose you. He whispered. The rain around us softened, falling in delicate, shimmering threads. The storm clouds above dimmed, as if listening. I stepped closer, reaching out. He hesitated, flickering, fading, but when my fingers brushed his form solidified. Just a little, just enough. The rain brightened, glowing faintly around our hands. Typhos, I said softly, come back with me. I don't know how. Then let me show you. I closed my eyes and focused not on the storm, not on the fear, but on him, on the warmth of his hand, on the way he'd looked at me in the café, on the way the rain had softened when we touched, on the connection that had never broken. The world pulsed, the rain brightened, and Typhos gasped, a sharp, startled sound, as his body grew more solid beneath my touch. Claire, his voice was full of wonder, you're anchoring me. Then hold on. He did. The storm realm trembled around us, the sky cracking with silver light. The ground rippled beneath our feet. The rain surged, swirling upward in a spiral of shimmering mist. And then the world snapped, the rain dissolved, the storm realm vanished. I opened my eyes to find myself kneeling on the wet pavement outside the café, breathless, soaked, trembling. Typhos was beside me, solid, real, alive. He looked at me like I'd pulled him out of the sky itself. You brought me back, he whispered. I reached for his hand. I'm not letting you go. Chapter 9. For a long moment neither of us moved. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, the kind that felt more like a whisper than weather. It clung to Typhos's hair, shimmered on his skin, and gathered on his lashes like tiny crystals. But he wasn't dissolving. He wasn't flickering. He wasn't fading. He was here, solid, breathing, alive. I reached out, half afraid my hand would pass through him again. But when my fingers brushed his cheek, warmth bloomed beneath my touch, real, steady, human warmth. Typhos inhaled sharply, leaning into my palm like he'd been starved for it. You brought me back, he whispered. I wasn't letting you go. I said, my voice trembling. His eyes closed, relief washing over his features in a way that made my chest ache. When he opened them again, they were softer than I'd ever seen, storm gray, but gentled like the sky after lightning. I felt you, he murmured, even when the storm realm was pulling me under. I felt your voice, your warmth, your insistence. A faint smile tugged at his lips. You're stubborn. Only when someone I care about is being dragged into a magical storm dimension. He huffed a quiet laugh, the first real laugh I'd heard from him, and the sound wrapped around me like a warm blanket. But then his expression shifted, turning serious again. Claire, he said softly, I need to tell you something. I nodded, heart thudding. When you pulled me back, I made a choice. What kind of choice? He took my hands in his, both of them, holding them like they were the only solid things in the world. I chose to anchor myself here, he said, in the human world, with you. A breath caught in my throat. Typhos, it means I won't be fully Rain anymore. He continued, I won't be immortal. I won't be able to vanish into storms or slip between realms. I'll be limited, human, I whispered. Not entirely. His thumb brushed my knuckles, slow and reverent, but closer, close enough to stay. Emotions swelled in my chest, relief, wonder, fear, hope all tangled together. Are you sure? I asked. You're giving up so much. He shook his head. I'm choosing something, not losing it. What, you? His voice was steady, certain. Your world, your warmth, your touch, the way the rain softens when you're near, the way I feel real when you look at me. My breath trembled. He lifted one hand to my cheek, brushing away a raindrop, or maybe a tear with a tenderness that made my knees weak. "I've existed for centuries," he said quietly, drifting between storms, watching the world but never touching it, never belonging to it. His gaze held mine unwavering. "Until you—" The drizzle around us shimmered, softening into a mist that felt almost warm. "Typhos," I whispered, "I want you here. I want you to stay." His eyes softened even more, a storm finally finding its calm. "Then I will." He leaned his forehead against mine, breath mingling with mine, the world narrowing to the space between us. The rain around us slowed, then softened, then stilled as if the sky itself were holding its breath. "I don't know what I'll become," he murmured, "but whatever it is, I want to become it with you." My heart felt too full, too bright, too alive. "Then stay," I whispered, "stay with me." He closed his eyes, exhaling a shuddering breath, a sound of surrender, of relief, of choosing. "I'm yours," he said softly, "if you'll have me." I didn't answer with words. I wrapped my arms around him, pulling him close, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his heart. A heart that shouldn't have been possible, a heart that existed because he chose it. Because he chose me. The rain around us shimmered once more, then faded into a soft silver mist. And for the first time since I'd met him, Typhos didn't disappear when the storm ended. He stayed. Chapter 10. The days that followed felt like waking up inside a dream I didn't want to end. The storms didn't vanish completely, they never would, not with Typhos tied to them, but they softened. The sky no longer cracked open with violent thunder. The rain no longer slammed against the windows like a warning. Instead, the weather settled into something gentler, something almost shy, something that felt like him. Typhos stayed close, though he was still learning what staying meant. He appeared in the café during drizzles, during misty mornings, even during the soft gray hours before a storm fully formed. Each time he looked a little more solid, a little more human, a little more here, and every time he walked through the door, my heart did the same quiet, impossible thing it steadied. One evening, just as I was closing up, a soft patter began outside, not a storm, not even real rain. Just a delicate sprinkle, like the sky was testing itself. I smiled. He always came with the first drops. Sure enough, the bell over the door chimed. Typhos stepped inside, brushing a hand through his hair. A few droplets clung to his coat, and this time they didn't vanish instantly. They slid down the fabric, falling to the floor in tiny, perfect beads. I stared. "Typhos," I whispered, "you're dripping." He looked down, startled, then laughed, a warm, surprised sound that filled the entire café. "I suppose I am." He lifted his boot and looked behind him. A faint footprint marked the wooden floor. Not perfect, not sharp, but real. My breath caught. "You're leaving footprints." He stepped closer, eyes softening. "I told you I was changing. You're becoming human, not fully," he said gently, but enough to stay, enough to walk beside you instead of between storms. I reached for his hand. He met me halfway, fingers threading through mine with a warmth that still felt miraculous. "How does it feel?" I asked. He looked around the café, the soft lights, the quiet hum of the espresso machine cooling down, the rain whispering against the windows. "Strange," he admitted, "heavy, warm, beautiful." His thumb brushed my knuckles, alive. We stood there for a moment, wrapped in the soft glow of the café, the rain outside falling in a gentle, steady rhythm. The kind of rain that didn't demand anything, the kind that soothed, the kind that stayed. Typhos stepped closer, his forehead resting lightly against mine. "I used to think storms were my only home," he murmured, but I was wrong. "Where's home now?" I whispered. His fingers tightened around mine. "Wherever you are." The rain softened even more, turning into a delicate mist that haloed the streetlights outside. The world felt quiet, held, suspended in a moment that didn't want to end. I closed the café early. Typhos helped me turn off the lights, his movements steady and sure. When we stepped outside together, the mist curled around us like a blessing. He looked up at the sky, then at me, his expression full of something warm and certain. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, and for the first time since the day I met him, the day he walked in without leaving footprints, the day the rain seemed to follow him, I believed it completely. We walked down the street hand in hand, leaving a trail of faint, imperfect footprints behind us, proof that he was here, proof that he chose this world, proof that he chose me.